In this video, I'm going to show you how we can add texture to the display of any of your projects or new projects. This feature was added in Cloud.30. To make sure you have that version, be sure and click the refresh button. We'll save your work first, then click the refresh button on the browser to make sure you've got the newest software. And when you do that, under the help menu down here at the bottom, it should say about Cloud.30, and then you'll have the same software that I'm demonstrating here. Okay, first of all, the simplest way to turn texture on is to go to the display menu and pick the texture option here. You need to turn on show texture, and then you'll be allowed to select from a list of all the textures that are in here. Let's pick corner to corner. Okay, so now we've got corner to corner crochet texture displayed. All of the drawing and everything that happens will now show in a textured mode. All the drawing tools work just like they always have. There's no difference between having texture on and texture off in terms of how it's edited. When you go to pick library patterns, you will now see them in textured format here. Likewise, when you go up here to pick substitute colors, you'll also see texturing in there. And when you have something that you're copying and pasting, then that shape will also show as a textured shape here. But it all works just the same as it always has. You turn the background on and off, that kind of thing. Stamp that on there. Okay, so all of that works exactly the same as before. One of the things that this option is going to be very useful for is if you have older projects that have particular types associated with them, but you've never been able to, see the texture in those projects because that feature didn't exist until now. You can go to Project and say Open something. Let's go down and pick my bunny baby blanket. This was made as a corner to corner project. You can see the type in here. It's a project type corner to corner crochet. So now that that type is set, when we go to display and we pick texture, it will know that it's corner to corner. And so it'll have that option set here also. You can pick other options, but it'll set the one that is most likely the one that you want to be the texture that you want to apply. And then you click on apply, and then you have your texture here. Then once you save that back, then the texture is saved with your project. You can also then create new projects with texture on them to start with. So for instance, let's do a cross stitch project. We need to select the texture button up here. This will contain something that will make sense for what you're selecting here. Sometimes there's more than one option in here, and sometimes that option will change depending upon what predefined settings you might select here. In this case, there's only one for cross stitch. Cross stitch is cross stitch. So we're going to pick 14 count Aida cloth, and then we'll go up and pick DMC. Where's DMC floss? There it is. Okay, and we'll create our project like that. Okay, so now we have cross stitches on here instead of corner to corner crochet. We now have cross stitches. And again, the tools work just exactly as they have before. Let's pick a brighter color so we can see what we're drawing here. Okay, so the line tool works, the shape tool works, the drawing tool will draw with whatever, and the right mouse buttons work. Everything is exactly the same as before. It's just displaying you a textured image instead of an empty square. If you're digitizing something and you go to Project Create from Image, let's do that. Let's do an example of that. Let's pick a simple image to digitize. And let's say we're going to make a double crochet or a half double crochet grafkin with this. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pick I'm going to pick Red Heart Super Saver yarn, which is a medium or a 4 weight of yarn. And then we'll go down here. And when we pick grid size, this is where the texture gets turned on. We pick define units. And down here where you're defining the type of project that you're doing, you pick crochet. Now with crochet, there are 3 things that are available right now: single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. So you can select the texture type that you want and turn that on. Then you want to select a gauge. You can type in whatever you want down here. You just need a swatch height and width in inches or in centimeters. And then you need the number of rows and the number of stitches, so that are in that swatch that you made. And that determines the gauge for the crochet. Now, I did enhance this a bit. I usually only had one in here for single crochet, but now I have half double crochet and double crochet gauges in this. These are all approximate for the different types of yarn weight that are here. The first 3 are medium weight, then light, then fine, and bulky are down here too. So we can pick, we're going to pick a half double crochet gauge for medium weight yarn, which is what we're using. The uh, Red Heart Super Saver yarn is a medium yarn. That will put in an approximate gauge for a 4 by 4 inch swatch. Now you can modify these values. You could turn this part off or whatever you want to do. As you select these in here, this selection up here will change depending upon which one you picked. The same is true for if you're doing diamond painting. There's a couple of choices in here which will change the value up here. So this is a nice way to do. Set it in there, and then if you want to change those to something else, go ahead and change it. But then we've got half double crochet. This is consistent half double crochet and half double crochet gauge. Okay, and then we say save changes. Okay, now we will not see that immediately. We will only see that once we finally create our final project. Okay, but it is working in terms of dividing up the cells. It is working with the shapes of the half double crochet cells when it's coming up with the computed picture up here. Let's go ahead and make this smaller, maybe 36 inches, something like that. Okay, and then let's go and reduce this color. I've done this before, so I know this is going to reduce down to 6. If I go to 5, I'll lose the 2 different color browns. So I definitely want to stick with 6 here. So let's go and say create project. I'm not going to name it right now. And then when we see our texture now will happen when the project is created. So we can see that we have half double crochets in here. Okay, like this. And then you would, proceed to clean up your picture. If you've watched my videos on how to do the digitization, you know that there's some tools in here that are very useful for cleanup on these things. In particular for this one, it looks like Fill Edge is going to work really nicely. So the Fill Edge tool will clean up the edge, all these little extra dots that are along here. It'll clean up that edge between the 2 colors that are picked here, foreground and background. So between this redwood color and the white color, the edge between that and that. And I usually put the one that I'm going to click on in the foreground color. You can do it the other way too, and that works too. But I usually pick the one that I want to click on here. I'm going to click on this, and it's going to fill these extra colors in with that color. So I just click on that, and needs sometimes a little extra work on the edges of things, on the very corner points of things. But in general, it will clean up the edges really nicely. Put a couple in there. And then there's an edge here between that and white, so I click on that. So I just go all over the picture and clean that up. Okay, so Anyway, that's a little aside into the digitization world. But anyway, everything, all the tools work exactly the same way they always have, whether you have texture on or off. And you have multiple ways to turn that on. You can go into the display menu and turn on texture for the thing. You can also create new projects either through the new project or the create from image option that will do texture. And also, you can go, there is a cell size and type down here which will change. You can change the you can change your gauge and that kind of thing on here, and you can also turn texture on and off from this option too, from that dialog too. Okay, I think that's about it. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.